light. You better lose that wife. Do you need your friends around?
I'll have to talk to Brian about that. There's some sort of feedback back there.
A man born and raised in Waukesha. He did his first hunting and fishing right here. Now he hunts the world and cooks it up deliciously, featured as the Midwestern host of The Fowl Life on the Outdoor Channel. Joe Clayfish was raised in the Shaw.
A couple extra pounds never really hurt, 'cause a country boy is all I'll ever be. 'Cause Hank taught me just how to stay alive.
This is Raised in the Shaw with me, Joel Clayfish. Appreciate you joining us today on this Thursday at 7 o'clock. Of course, you can listen to us every Thursday for Raised in the Shaw with me, Joel Clayfish. 7 o'clock on WAUK, 540 AM, 101 FM, The Shaw. You know, it's pretty cool to have been raised in the Shaw, literally, and be on a show called Raised in the Shaw. I'm going to start tonight's show with a little bit of full disclosure. Full disclosure, today I went in for my colonoscopy. Yes, I know it's very hard to believe that I have attained the age of 50 years old because, number one, I certainly don't act like it. And my daughters are kind enough to tell me that they don't think I look like it. So at any rate, I want to talk for just a second about going in for a colonoscopy today. First of all, it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, and it certainly is an uncomfortable thing to go through. But those of you who know me know that colon cancer has touched my life, my family's life. My wife was diagnosed with colon cancer at age 35, and very difficult time in our life because she was going through a very busy time. And at the time she was going through that, she was misdiagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And because of her age, it was seemingly impossible for her to have colon cancer. And although it is incredibly rare to have colon cancer at age 35, she did. But what that did for us as a family is put it on the radar screen that it is nothing to mess with. And when I turned 50, I was advised by the doctor to get in for a colon cancer screening, as soon as possible, and that's something that I did. I set up, and I did it this morning, and I have to confess, as a non-drinker for 9 years, the sedation this morning was probably as close as I've felt to having a cocktail in a very long time. But if I'm a little loopy tonight, you'll understand why. It's because I did have that colonoscopy this morning, and I'm excited or very happy to report from that there was nothing very concerning coming out of that, which is great news. And the doctor said, yeah, you'll have to come back for another one in 7 to 10 years. The worst part, everybody says, what's the worst part about it? I thought the worst part was literally drinking the stuff you have to drink for the prep for it the night before. Just the taste of it, it was absolutely horrible, but I'm glad I did it. And for those of you who know how important making sure that you can be preemptive on anything that may cause cancer or cancer itself is extremely important. And that's just one aspect of my life. When they came to me and said, Joel, we'd like to talk to you about doing a radio show on WAUK called Raised in the Shaw, about being raised in this area, raised in Wisconsin, and talking about some of the things that are important to your life. One of the things that was surprising to me when I started putting it on paper is how many different things that I am blessed to have my fingers in and things that I get to participate in. And one of the things that is so very important to me is obviously the outdoors. Hunting, fishing, bringing game from the field to the table. But if you know me, you know that something extremely important to me is helping people in the area of disabilities, in the disability community, and in the disability industry. And so often, the disability industry is kind of lumped by people into just one category. Well, of course, we want to help people with disabilities, and very often people don't realize the different ways there are to help people with disabilities, and that some of those things actually take legislation. They take convincing of those who are making the laws to look at the ways in which some of the things that are needed to help people with disability are funded. The ways in which we can use technology nowadays to advance somebody's independence and advance their integrity. Those are things that are extremely important. And I promised you at the beginning, when we started the show, we're going to have celebrities on the show. And two of the folks that we're having on the show with me tonight are celebrities to me. They're heroes to me because they've worked their entire careers essentially with the mission of helping people with disabilities become independent. So our show tonight is we're going to talk about the outdoors and independence and how we can do our best to integrate folks who have disabilities into the outdoors. But I want to make sure that we talk tonight a little bit about some of the nuances that are involved with allowing people the independence they deserve, the integrity they deserve to work how and where they choose, and to have the best available things. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that the average person might not see or understand when it comes to people with disabilities. The first person that I want to talk to, she's joining us from Southern Illinois. Do not insert Illinois jokes here. She's from Southern Illinois. Her name is Melissa Georgioff, and she's a great friend of mine, co-worker, and she has worked for decades on making sure those who need wheelchairs and need access to independent mobility devices in the outdoors are important. But before we get to that, for a second, I want to introduce Melissa and welcome her to the show. And I want to talk to her for just a second before we go to break about the fact that she lost someone very close to her with colon cancer, to wrap it back around to making sure you do what you need to do to prevent yourself, preventative measures, colonoscopies, their unpleasantness. But Melissa, welcome to the show. And we were just chatting before you came on about the fact that people don't realize how far a reach colon cancer has and how many people it touches, do they?
See it on video. Colon cancer, I lost my mom to colon cancer about 12 years ago. And if she would have just had a colonoscopy back when she was about 20 years before that, when she was in her 50s, she could have potentially prevented it. I've had mine. I don't want to say my age, I guess, but I had one about 11 years ago because my mom had cancer. So you're supposed to have it at 40. And then I'm actually due also for my next one. So it is really important that we do proper screening for sure.
And I think that, you had mentioned to me that your mom didn't actually die of the colon cancer. She died of the treatment of the colon cancer, which is also very difficult and can be very harsh. But I think it's easy to second guess afterward, no question. But I think people think of colon cancer, prostate cancer, those type of cancers as so curable that it's kind of not a concern. But in the case of your mother, had she been diagnosed earlier, there's a strong chance she may not have had the treatment that ultimately, potentially led to her dying, isn't it?
She went through chemo and radiation, but it was the complications of the radiation. She lost her hair. She went to Sighton Cancer Center here in St. Louis, which she received excellent care there. But it was the, radiation is so hard on your body, and she got weaker and weaker, and then ended up in a complex wheelchair for her last few days, and then ended up having some respiratory issues and pneumonia. So
yeah, so I can't stress it enough, and
it's hard to lose someone like that.
I can't imagine it. And when when people were, you'll get a little chiding about having to go in for a colonoscopy or prepping for that, or you're this age now, you got to do it, or you have it in your family, you got to do it. And I will tell you this, the way they've got it set up now in the hospital, the uncomfortable nature of it is really put to a minimum. You go in, I had sedative medication today and came out of it feeling pretty darn good right away. And of course the prep, when you have to drink the liquid, which helps you evacuate, and without getting in too much detail, it's not it was not as traumatic of an experience as I thought it might be. And I can't emphasize it enough to folks out there that preventative measures are important. And my wife is alive today, no question, because of the miraculous work and hands of modern medicine and modern doctors. So don't be afraid to get the colonoscopy. And you know what? I think that today, I really think we should dedicate the show, Melissa, to your mom and to those out there who are struggling with colon cancer and other types of cancers, because it certainly touches everybody. And it's something that in so many cases we can prevent. So if anything I'd like to get out of go into the first break with, it's the fact that don't be afraid to take those preemptive measures to get out there and make sure that you are healthy. And I'm not embarrassed to say I was in there for my colonoscopy today, and it's kind of funny because as I was drifting off, I was thinking of the hunting trips that I have planned and hoping for myself that everything's okay so that I can plan those hunting trips. And if nothing else, it gives you a heck of a peace of mind when you're doing that. When we come back, we're going to talk to Ted Malkowski, and we'll keep Melissa on the line if she doesn't mind. And we're going to talk about the integrity of someone who's in a wheelchair or disabled. Their ability to be American and strong in my belief. We'll be right back. I'm Raised in the Show.
But I'll say it again, 'cause I've never needed government to hold my hand. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again, 'cause my family's always fought and died to save this land. And a country boy is all I'll ever be.
Welcome back to Raised in the Shaw with Joel Clayfish. That's me, Joel Clayfish. Raised in the Shaw. You're listening to 101 FM WAUK, 540 AM, The Shaw. Boy, we'd love to have you call in if you're interested in any of the topics here. And when you listen to this show, you never know what you're going to get, because one of the blessings of my life has been that I get to participate in so many different things.
Alone when each day is through.
From working with people with disabilities to working on an outdoor national television show called The Foul Life. Anybody who knows me knows that eating's one of my favorite things and food is my favorite dish. So we very often talk about food prep and how to take game from the field to the table. Today, I'm talking with some friends of mine who have made it their entire life to make sure that people with disabilities have the very best opportunities they can to be independent, to participate in the work of their choice, and to have integrity in their lives. And I'm really excited. We're going to talk about some of the legislation that was passed here in the state of Wisconsin, which I'll be honest, I was a member of the Wisconsin House of Representatives for 14 years. And it was an area I really concentrated on, was making lives better for people with disabilities. And sometimes that's an area that people don't realize is so integral and important to making sure people with disabilities have the opportunities they have the rights they have to their work choice, and to be independent. I've got Melissa Georgioff, who's a Vice President of Payer Relations for New Motion. But joining us also today is Ted Malkowski, who's the Medicaid Director, which is really a job that wears many, many hats, because he's also kind of a partner in crime with me to looking at legislation, look across the country and looking at ways to make sure independence is something we're guaranteeing people with disabilities. Ted, welcome to the show. How long have you been in the disabilities industry? How'd you start and how'd you get here?
Oh, thanks, Joel. This will be going on 36 years. Started right after college.
Oh, you don't look a day older than 37.
Thank you. I feel younger. So, but yeah, right after college, started working. My father actually was a pharmacist and had a little DME shop, and I went to help him for a couple months and loved it, and just kept going from there. So yeah, it's been a passion of mine. I've never changed careers since that day.
How has it changed when back, 36 years ago when somebody said, I want to do everything I can to be independent or to have, to be able to look someone in the eye? How has that changed from then till now?
Oh, the technology. I mean, we are in a time where technology is taken off in the world of cell phones and Bluetooth and all that, which is just translated into wheelchairs. So when I started, there was one company that made wheelchairs. That's it. There was one type of chair. There was one way to maneuver that chair with your hand. Now we have chairs that, people can actually look with their eyes and drive around. We have chairs that they can move their head from side to side and drive around. So it is the technology that's out there today allows us to give people that independence, that no matter what has happened to them, no matter what disability or no matter what disease they get, if they got one movement, we can find something that can make them independent within their home, going to work, communicating, all of that stuff because of technology. Technology is amazing in our industry.
You said move it around with your head. Now, I know, somewhat about the ways that people can move a chair, but talk to me about some of the ways that they're using their head, their eyes to actually function in a chair, move that chair and gain some mobility. If someone's, let's say, paralyzed or quadriplegic, or they've got a C4, a very high level spinal cord injury, they're still able in certain circumstances to maneuver themselves.
Absolutely. One of the newest ones that we've seen that has just come out is called eye gaze technology. So it's very, very similar to what you see, in your car screen, where you have basically a video screen that you're looking at. And on that video screen where your eyes go, it tracks the chair and you see where you're going. So you're actually looking at a video screen, moving your eyes right, your chair goes right. Moving your eyes forward, you're going forward, and all the way through that process. So for somebody, we see a lot of it in the ALS. ALS is a horrific disease, and it usually affects all the body, the limbs of the body. So you're not able to use your hands or your feet. And one of the things you have left are your eyes to be able to move her around. So this technology has been very instrumental in getting people back their independence and just moving around their environment.
I think it's absolutely incredible, because what happens when I hear that or see that, like when you're talking about the eye gaze technology, this is the first time I've ever heard that term used, or I start thinking of like outdoor or hunting applications. So, is there a possible way that you could have somebody set up with this technology and they could literally see the woods with, let's say, a firearm or a crossbow set up for them, and they could see the scenario and be able to, with their eyes, if something comes into frame or comes to a feeding spot or comes past a pasture area, to fire a firearm or to fire a crossbow and actually literally be able to hunt from their chair? This is where my brain goes. Is this something that's possible in the near future?
Oh, it might even be possible right now. Most of this technology is Bluetooth driven. So if you can find a device and let's say something you can mount that gun or crossbow to, they could use their eyes to maneuver that whatever direction they want as they're looking in the screen, more or less to point it at that, deer, wildlife that's going by. And I'm sure the technology is out there that then through your wheelchair, because the chairs are capable of infrared right now, where I can operate a remote control. I can run a TV, but if we can operate a remote control of a TV, we can operate a remote control of anything. We just have to teach the wheelchair how to do it. So now your chair, using your eyes or using your mouth or using your head, you can position that and also pull that trigger.
My gosh, this is so great. Yeah. Imagine for a minute being able to tell somebody who thrived in the outdoors and was in an accident or has something else that is affecting their movement, ALS, for example, and the thing that gives them the most joy in their entire life is to be able to hunt. And we can create a scenario whereby they would be able to hunt, but it's not just virtually. They're not playing a video game.
Correct.
They're actually hunting in the field that they can, be in front of a screen, set that up, and we're going to talk. We're getting close to break already. This time's going so fast. But I want to talk about the fact that when we come up with ideas like this, very often we have to change laws in order to follow through on those ideas. We're going to talk about that idea when we come back, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that Wisconsin's done to help create independence for those with disabilities. The number to call in is 844-967-2789. Call in. You're listening to Raising the Shaw. We'll be right back.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes
It goes fast, hey,
wide
Melissa?
open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds.
Melissa, have you been in it as many years as Ted?
I walk the line.
Evan, Melissa cannot hear me.
I walk the line because you're mine.
Well, good morning to you. Do you need another mule skinner?
All right, welcome back, Wisconsin, to 101 FM WAUK 540 AM, The Shaw. This is Raised in the Shaw with me, Joel Clayfish, and what a fascinating topic we're on. We went to break. We're talking with Ted Malkowski and Melissa Georgioff, who spend their time helping those with disabilities and being mobile. And we went into the break talking about the possibility of using some of the new technology to actually hunt for somebody who could actually potentially pull a trigger on a screen and hunt real animals in the woods. And Ted, that is completely fascinating to me. I mean, the thought of allowing people to utilize the great outdoors through the virtual technology we have, but ending up with a real product at the end of it, a real harvested animal that they can put on the table. I mean, how much is what you and Melissa do about fulfillment of people's lives? How much does this stuff kind of matter to someone with a disability?
Well, it's tremendous. I mean, it's Melissa, and I can speak for her because I know her very well. It's an absolute passion of ours. We've both been in this forever, and to utilize the technology that's out there, to actually allow individuals who are not as blessed as us to get up every day and walk and put our pants on and go out and shoot a gun or go out and hunt something or go out, you know what I mean? We take that for granted. And a year ago, 2 years ago, some of the new technology that came out was standing. We have now power wheelchairs that will stand you up. So for individuals who can go out and hunt and then get into a standing position because they can't do it on their own and actually be able to do that. Or we have chairs that can raise you, 12 inches up in the air so you can overlook the brush and see down and see what you're looking at and out in the hunting in the field. But you know how difficult that was to try and get that through lead because nobody paid for it. Because the struggles we run into, the technology is out there. The reimbursement from our Medicares and our Medicaids of the world have not kept up with the technology. They're antiquated. It's old. That's experimental. Who's that going to help? How is that a medical necessity? Really? How is living your life not a medical necessity? How is not getting out and enjoying all the things that this, not only Wisconsin, but the United States has to offer? Yeah. How is that not necessary?
Melissa and I have talked about it before. Melissa, we've talked about the fact that sometimes advances for people with disabilities are seen as a treat or a specialty. But that is not in reality whatsoever the truth, because we're talking about affording somebody to do in some way what somebody who's not in a chair, somebody without that specific disability can do without thinking about it. I think we have to change, don't you think, Melissa? We've got to change the mindset that this is something that anyone with a disability should have access to just as part of their own independence and integrity.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times, and I work with many different health plans around the country, and we're in 47 state Medicaid programs. And, a lot of times these are seen as convenience. That's what we hear back is these are convenience items, or they're not medically necessary. But I can tell you that every single piece of component, every component on those chairs are medically necessary. I mean, I can make an argument. I knew one lady who a lot of times will say, well, why is a cup holder? Like something as simple as a cup holder, why is that medically necessary? But some of our customers can't use their arms or their legs. And so, they have a straw. A lady had a cup and she couldn't even drink because, she had the straw that kind of came all the way up and around to, so that she could actually hydrate herself. So I would argue that a cup holder, would be medically necessary on a chair. But it's a pet peeve of mine that when I hear people say, oh, we're not going to pay for the Cadillac of wheelchairs. Well, these are these people's legs. This is their mobility. This is how they get around. You put a price on your legs,
And you know what? Don't tell me a cup holder is not medically necessary if it's required to get somebody the hydration they need to be healthy. That's a medical necessity. This view that somebody with a disability shouldn't have something because it's a treat or it's a specialty item. I've heard, spend a day in a chair. Spend a day understanding what it's like to get around and to become independent. And the difference in many cases of somebody actually being able to get themselves a cup of water versus not being able to is a cup holder, or is them being able to utilize a form of technology to move their chair because they don't have use of their arms. And I see we've actually got a caller calling in right now. Robin from Oconomowoc. And Robin, you know firsthand, don't you, how important it is independence, and not just for the outdoors, not just to get yourself something in your home, but to be able to work. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Hi, Joel. And your guest this just fires me up. Especially hearing about it's medically needed. How about dignified? You need it for dignity and life. And I'm just saying that the technology of the standing chair, I know that's like old now. You guys were talking about Bluetooth and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to call in and tell you how great that stand-up chair is. But I've worked with people with disabilities for almost 30 years. And one of the most amazing things to see was when one of the participants I work with had a chair that stood him up. He's an advocate, a self-advocate, and he was able to stand and look eye to eye with someone else. That is so incredibly powerful, and we take it for granted. And I have to commend you all for this show.
Robin, that's so awesome. I have to tell you, you gave me goosebumps, because for someone out there to challenge the fact that looking someone else in the eye when you talk to them should be a specialty item or a special treat is just ridiculous. And the look that you see on the faces of people when you give them something they haven't had for so long, and being able to stand and look someone in the eye and communicate your message to them, or to stand to see over a hill or horizon, just to give them the human dignity to be able to do that is amazing. And you know what's crazy about that? What's absolutely crazy is what a tough fight that was to even get that covered. And I have to be honest, we could not have done it without Democrats and Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature who worked together with us to make sure that those are some of the kind of covered items. And I'm proud to say, I mean, in the state of Wisconsin, standing technology is included. And there really is, I mean, that really encapsulates the front edge of what we should be able to do to give dignity to folks who are in a chair. And you see it on a daily basis, Robin. You see how people use their technology and use their mobility equipment to do a job. And that job also gives them dignity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It blows my mind that we have to actually tell people this is a medical requirement. It's a life requirement. So I just commend all of you for what you're doing and keep up the fight. And thanks for having this great topic on your show, Joel.
Okay.
And have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, you too. And thank you, Robin, for all that you do to make sure that folks in the disability realm have the right to choose how and where they work and have the dignity and awareness and advocacy that they do have. You're working hard out there, and we do so sincerely appreciate it.
I just want to say something, Robin. Thank you so much for calling in. And, you bring up a great point. I mean, one of the first standing chairs, I'm an ATP by trade, which means I fit individuals.
What is ATP? Tell the listeners what an ATP is.
Assistive Technology Professional, which means, I've gone through the schooling and everything to actually fit people in these high-end chairs because it is very complex. But one of the first standing chairs I did was for a gentleman who worked full-time. And he got his chair, and he called me about 3 days into it, and he said, Ted, I got to tell you, this chair is absolutely amazing, but the greatest thing you did for me, and you want to talk about dignity, he worked full time. He could not get into the bathroom on his own and stand up and go to the bathroom at the urinal. He had to have a coworker come in and empty his leg bag multiple times a day. Now, you want to talk about an adult male who's got to ask somebody to come in and more or less help them go to the bathroom. He got his standing chair, could drive in. I get goosebumps when I tell the story because it's amazing to me how that little thing made his life so different. He could drive in, stand up, and go to the bathroom by himself at the urinal. And the dignity he gained and the amount of time back at work, it changed his life. And that's something simple. And it does drive me nuts when we hear, this is not medical. No, this is absolutely medical and life-changing.
Life-changing for those of us who take that for granted. And I have to be honest, one of the things that has truly been a blessing and the most important thing that I have learned working with people with disabilities is to appreciate the life and ease of use that I have in my life. And so often, those of us who do have that ease of use look at a segment of society as oh yes, everybody says yes, I want to help people with disabilities. But Melissa, firsthand, the nitty-gritty of helping people with disabilities is getting in there and talking about those uncomfortable things. I mean, Ted just talked about a man being able to use the restroom on his own, something that if you take for granted, you don't think twice about, but something that so many people with disabilities can and are able to do if they just have the equipment they need to do it.
Right. And Joel, to add to that, not only did we work and thanks to you and your help with being our lobbyist there in the state of Wisconsin, we also got seat elevation covered. So it was not only standing, but seat elevation. And a lot of people need that seat elevator so that they can reach the sink, they can get milk out of the refrigerator, they can get a drink, they can do all the different activities of daily living. And there are federal laws out there that require state Medicaid programs to review everything for medical needs. So there is that protection, but even state Medicaid plans need to be reminded of that they have to review these things and that these things need to be covered.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And here we are already heading into our final break of the show, and it's gone so fast. We got 15 minutes. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit with Melissa and Ted about what the future holds. And for those people who have disabilities and they want to get more involved or in their own independence, what is possible to do that and what are some of the routes to do that? You can call us too at 844-967-2789. Really appreciate Robin calling in. This is a fascinating show to me and it's a fun show, and I love the fact that we're talking about ways to get independent, utilize the outdoors. You're listening to Raised in the Shaw with me, Joel Clayfish. We'll be right back. Robin was awesome.
Now I grew up down an old dirt road in a town you wouldn't know. My pops picked the place up for $1,500 back in 1960.
Oh man, every time I hear that song I think that's me man. If I was only as BA as Aaron Lewis. Well, we try, don't we? I wear a cowboy hat from time to time, get in the sloughs, hunting gators, get out in the field very early in the morning to set up for ducks and geese. It's a foul life, but somebody's got to live it. Welcome back to the show. My name's Joel Clayfish. You're listening to Raised in the Shaw on 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, The Shaw. Our call-in numbers are 844-967-2789, 844-967-2789. We had an awesome caller just a minute ago. And before we continue with our topics today, I'm going to give a little plug for my buddies out at the Safari Club International. They've got their Wild Game Happy Hour coming up on Friday, March 25th. At Weisgerber's Golden Mast, and that is a wild game feed. If you want to try wild game and haven't had the guts to do it, not many cooks out there better than Hans Weisgerber at the Golden Mast. That's on the 25th. You can contact the Safari Club to go to that. And of course, if you want to say hey to me, the host of Raised in the Shaw on WAUK 540 AM, I will be at that event. So come say hello. Tell us you love the show. And I will pass that on to Crute and Evan and Brian, who do so much work behind the scenes. Thank you to them. We've got Ted Malkowski and Melissa Georgioff joining us, who have made their careers in literally fitting people who need wheelchairs and mobility equipment, disabled folks who need that equipment to try to make their lives better. And we've been talking about the technology that's out there right now and how that can even help with them being able to utilize the outdoors or experience the outdoors, but more than that, experiencing life with a level of integrity, which is so very important. And we talked specifically about the potential for technology that the eyes use that's not, commonly used, but I start thinking in applications of fishing applications, hunting applications, cooking applications. And I think we're going to see that booming here in the future. Ted, you've been in the industry for 30 plus years. You've seen it gone from one wheelchair provider essentially to several, and you've seen technology boom. Where's it going from here? What can we expect next? I mean, holograms, can we expect, the intelligent, the computer intelligence, artificial intelligence in that industry as well? Is it going to just keep getting better? And then my question to you is also, at some point, are we going to start seeing strides in spinal cord repair and those type of things? And do they go hand in hand?
I think they absolutely go hand in hand. I'll answer your first question. And things are going to continue to evolve. I mean, as our technologies increase. So one of the newest things we're seeing right now, in all our cars where they can parallel park themselves and they got backup cameras. And, I just got myself a new Ford truck that'll back my, my boat up for me without doing anything. Well, we're starting to see that go into wheelchairs, where it's got side cameras, it's got sensors. Because we see a lot of individuals in chairs, you can't see that pothole, or you come off that curb, or you don't see that car coming around the corner, So we're starting to see that already being, in the chairs. But the downside we see with a lot of this technology is insurances don't want to cover it. No one wants to pay for it. So that's been a big struggle. But robotic and AI technology, we are already starting to scratch the surface. There's a company right now that makes a robotic arm that you can program that will feed you, help you take your medication, open the fridge for you, can program you to do a number of tasks. Again, and I know Melissa can speak to this as well, we fight every day for insurances to cover it, because it's not inexpensive. It runs around $80,000 to $100,000. But again, it's all about independence. It's all about being able to live on your own and do the things that everybody else can do. So again, we hear the same things. Oh, that's great technology, but we're not going to pay for it. So I just see that continuing to expand because of what's out there. And I think that goes hand in hand with spinal cord repair. I think we're going to see that in my lifetime. I plan on living another 40 to 50 years, Joel. So,
well, you sure look like you might, Ted.
Well, I'm
you
feeling
look good, man. I think you can fight it out. You brought up something that, I wanted to talk to Melissa about. And this is something, I don't want to vilify the insurance companies. Okay. I don't want to vilify the insurance companies. We work, very often, your work is hand in hand with insurance companies. But what really irks me and gets my dander up a little bit is the initial, we don't want to pay for it. So there's several things going on there. First off, you're saying you don't want to pay for or someone doesn't deserve a technology that's going to allow them independence. So what you're completely ignoring is the fact that giving someone independence very often takes away a caregiver. And caregivers are extremely expensive. And if you can make someone independent enough that a robotic arm can take out the juice and pour a glass and serve it to somebody, too often people are focused on the front end of a cost in life, in what we do. And the tough thing, I think, with this industry is proving that you're going to save money on the back end, because everybody wants to see the bottom line right off the bat, right on paper. And, Melissa, I know you deal with this issue all the time. People struggle to allow for standing technology, but if that person doesn't have the technology to move them off their bottom side and move them in a chair appropriately, they can develop a bed sore, which can turn into a decubitus ulcer, which can be a $250,000 surgery that Medicaid is paying for. So let's start to think outside of the box. Let's start to think a little cutting edge here and help people realize that if we keep folks with disabilities healthy, they're going to cost us so much less on the back end. And in addition, we're giving them a quality of life that is inexplicable. We're giving them a sense of being and humanness that cannot be compared. And I just think we have this backward thinking about it. Don't you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I think it comes down to education, right? And I think that a lot of times, in the health plan defense, they have members going on and off their plans all the time, and they want to pay for what's medically necessary today. And we have to do a really good job, too, of explaining that these people are going to progress, especially like in the case of ALS. Today maybe they can use a scooter or a basic power chair, but we know that if you have ALS, it's very progressive, and you're going to need something that has tilt and recline, and it's going to need a lot more features very quickly. And so, that's the challenge that we have is I understand the health plan wants to pay for what's medically necessary today, but we don't want to have to go through the whole loopholes again of, getting the medical justification, getting a prior authorization, there's so many different, all of this paperwork and having to go through another approval process when that person's going to need that chair very quickly that has all of the different features on it. So let's put them in what they need today so that they can live the rest of their life independent and mobile.
And if somebody has a disability, in my belief, in the way I've tried to live my life, is if there's somebody with a disability, do anything you can to allow them to have the integrity in their life that any human being deserves and that we try to afford to any human being. Ted, you've told me stories of people whose lives have changed because they can cross a street by themselves, or they can get something out of the fridge, or they can use the bathroom by themselves. I think sometimes we don't realize the change in someone's quality of life we are making when they're able to utilize this technology. And I'm telling you, I know a lot of people who would love to take advantage of that, to be able to utilize it for the outdoors. And look at that. That's how fast the show went. We're already at the end of it. And today, that's the thing about Raised in the Shaw that I love. We're going to have different topics. We're going to have different people on. We're going to have local, national celebrities. We're going to talk about hunting, cooking, eating, folks with disabilities. Today, I probably talked too much about my colonoscopy, but get out there and make sure you get one if you need one, because preventative medicine is the best medicine. And you are my best medicine listening out there. You're listening to Raised in the Shaw. We'll see you next week at 7 o'clock on Thursday, 101 FM, WAUK, 540 AM.